Welcome into an all-new Jock Market Power Hour for this week's Rocket Mortgage Classic. I'm Rick Gaiman, that right there, Joe Idoni. Joe, things are heating up, bud. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Rocket Mo, baby. Yeah, Tony Finau, defending champion, is back. Actually, was somewhat pleasantly surprised. You know, seemed to be a little bit of fatigue running off a major championship and the elevated event series, sort of grabbing up all the top names and then being used to. But we had a couple of nice commits here. I think some guys and some more well-known players in search for some FedEx Cup and some Ryder Cup points. So it leads to a good field for us.
Yeah, I think it's technically the strongest field this event has ever had. That's obviously a lower bar than other events. But yeah, I mean, Finau and Morikawa and Justin Thomas and Max Homa, Hideki. I mean, we can certainly deal with that in the market for tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to sort of break this down. We've now got 4 years of sort of experience to go off of. We kind of have a decent idea of what correlates to success here. And we're coming off a great week at the Travelers as well. I think the scoring, given the soft conditions in the area, is going to be pretty similar, if not even lower than what we saw last week.
Tony Finau, I think he was saying a little tongue-in-cheek, but thinks it might get to 30 under par, which would be quite a lot. And it wouldn't be a Jock Market Power Hour if there wasn't like new things going on at Jock Market, which is crazy. I mean, it's stock market DFS. We know a couple of months ago they added the props pick'em side of things, and now the next step in that evolution is the Jock Pot.
Yeah.
The Jock Pot, which is also a very good name, where if you go out, so they're $5 entries, these little small little entries. And if you go out and get 11 picks correct, go 11 for 11, you win this progressive jackpot. The graphic that I'm showing right now says $7,800 is the jackpot. It's already over that, right? Last time we checked, it was 8,300.
83.88 is the current jackpot right now. So every day that goes by, and make no mistake about it, hitting 11 correct picks is very, very hard. So every day that goes by, that number continues to tick up. 88.33 right now in the jackpot. So that closes here in about an hour. So get your picks in. There's PGA guys in there. We have round one strokes, birdies are better, holes played. You can apply all of those toward this sort of promotion. And it's not just like, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we mention is it's not just all 11 picks have to hit. There are other ways to get paid out, all the way from 7 correct picks all the way up to 11 incrementally. They have different payouts, but of course, to get the grand prize there, you need to nail them all.
Yeah, that's new. Now, what is not new is that if you follow Jock Market on Twitter and you retweet this tweet or quote tweet it with who you think is going to be having the best week, Ricky Fowler, Tony Finau, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, you're going to draw for $150. The other thing that we've been running for the last couple of weeks, this first market offer, Joe, for PGA, where basically if this is your first cash market, and we'll give you some examples of how this played out last week here in just a second, and you lose, Jock Market makes you whole up to $100. If you win, they just give you another $20. So it is a guaranteed risk. It's a risk-free market plus a profit boost market. So they're really taking down whatever barrier of entry, which there wasn't a lot, because you can get into, what I like about Jock Market is you can get in for as little or as much as you want. But like whatever small barrier of entry there was gets smaller by the minute.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is only and I may be wrong about this, but as far as I know, only available in the PGA markets. So it's an offer sort of exclusive that kind of coincides with this show. Obviously, we have the promo code scrolling across the bottom of your screen now if you're with us on YouTube. That is power for $100 deposit match. So theoretically, you can put in $100. You're going to automatically have 200 in your account. You can get totally wiped out, which won't happen. I can guarantee this won't happen. But let's just assume you get totally wiped. Every one of your picks in your portfolio for $200 is terrible. You have $0 left. You're getting that $100 back. So they're essentially just putting that right back into your account. You're totally made whole again. So it's completely risk-free. It's a great way to sort of get your feet wet in the cash market IPOs. And you have a couple of weeks to play this out. We have another major championship on the horizon. We have the FedEx Cup. We have a ton of great events to sort of wrap up this season as things continue to heat up for the rest of the summer.
Yeah, we're going to look ahead here in just 1 second, but let's put some tangible numbers to this and look back for a moment. Last week, Keegan Bradley sold for $4.77 in IPO, paid out the full $25 per share for his victory. So you made $20 per share of profit on Keegan last week. But those other names, guys like Brian Harmon, Zach Blair, Scotty Scheffler, who did not win the golf tournament, still returned you a nice little ROI. Harmon, $15 of profit per share. Zach Blair, one of the biggest returns of the year, 900% ROI, $16 per share on a $1.80 investment for a third place finish. So that's the beauty of the Jock market.
Yeah, you mentioned Zach Blair. Keep in mind, too, if Zach Blair would have finished in dead last place last week, you would have gotten $1 back. So you're technically at 79 cents a share here on Zach Blair, and you were paid out $18 per share. And obviously, you can have as many or as little as you want. Another good example is Denny McCarthy there. Like I had Denny as my guy. It was a tough week on the weekend for those of us with an outright ticket who were kind of sweating. Hopefully, he was hoping for that sort of breakthrough victory. I lost all my money in the outright market. I could have sold the shares for more at one point during Friday there, which looking back, I probably should have offloaded a few, but still more than doubled your money. Every dollar per share that I put in was made back more than $2 back to me. So even off of a disappointing finish, if your guys are still beating that mark of expectation and that dollar mark, you're going to return yourself a profit and get you some ROI.
Yep. And I know I sound like a broken record, but just to put a bow on Scotty Scheffler and show this unbelievable trend that he's on, another week without a win, but yet another very profitable Jock market. So he has now returned you a profit in 6 straight. And what is that? 15 of his last 18 markets, a pretty unheard of stretch of golf out of Scotty Scheffler right now.
Without a doubt, he's absolutely printing money, and he's doing it at nearly probably an average price of $11 or $12 per share over those weeks. So an unheard of run in sort of productivity from the top price, high end guy, and in terms of a market that we've seen since we've really started this show. And his level of consistency, although maybe some can sort of disparage him for not breaking through and getting that win, and the putter may be holding him back, and he should have capitalized on all these opportunities. It doesn't really matter here because he's still returning you money week after week.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So again, we are playing stock market DFS. If you are trying to get involved with a promo code on your first deposit, that code you're looking for is POWER. There's a link in the description. We went through all the other opportunities you can get in for some more free cash and potentially guarantee yourself a winning market. Lots of good stuff coming out of Jock Market for this week and for most weeks. So let's turn our attention to Rocket Mortgage. And Joe, you mentioned it. You know, this golf course, we've got now 4 years worth of data. What do we know about Detroit GC, and what types of golfers do we think are likely to have success this week?
Okay, so what do we know about the course? The first things first, last week, I think TPC River Highlands ended up catching some flack from some of the players, most notably Rory, about it being too short and the caliber of player and technology essentially passing the course by. This course actually plays shorter than the Travelers to a degree. Over 47% of approach shots last year came inside of 150 yards, which is unbelievable, which is a greater percentage of shots inside of 150 yards than we saw last week at the Travelers. So it's a relatively short course. We've seen guys deploy sort of multiple strategies. The bomb and gouge has been effective in terms of the type of players that we're looking to sort of isolate for success here. But I also don't want to discount the guys who are shorter off the tee and fairway finders and consistent, because I've also looked at leaderboards where we've seen Nate Lashley and Doc Redman and Troy Merritt and Kevin Kisner have 2 top 3s here, and Ryan Armour have a top 3 in 2020. So these guys have shown up here and competed. Those are some of the shorter hitters on the PGA Tour. So I think given the total yardage, it really opens things up to a lot of the field. And ultimately, I think with some of the conditions this week and the general relative ease of scoring at this event, you're just going to have to make a lot of putts, and that's typically pretty tough to predict. But like you mentioned, I think 25 under par is probably the mark you're going to need.
Yeah, lots of rain on Sunday, soften this place up, and it's going to be go time. It's going to be go time on Thursday morning for these players. Now, let's put some names to it, Joe, and we play a little game called Bullish or Bearish here. And what we've decided to do is we've decided to go a little bit further down the board because we end up talking about the big names anyway. So let's pick 4 golfers that maybe we would not have given their due credit. And I'm just going to start with one that I'll tell you I'm pretty bullish on. It's Alex Smalley. Starting to play better golf. Now, if you remember, we're playing a different game here. So you've got to figure out what each golfer's fair value is and whether or not you're a buyer at that price. So the fair value for Alex Smalley is $5.46. That is asking him to finish about 30th or better, Joe. When I look at this stat profile, it looks a lot like the stat profile from the fall where he was piling up those really good finishes. This is a weak field, confident golfer who's got a lot of firepower. I'm in on Smalley.
You know what? I'm in as well. I really like that pick heading into the week, especially at that fair value price of finishing top 30. He's been one of the top 10 guys in terms of ball strikers and basically giving himself a ton of birdie looks inside 15 feet over the last six tournaments played or so. Very consistent overall, and we've seen those approach numbers that you have up on the screen now. Between that and the ball striking numbers, you can just see the confidence. You can see the level of consistency. If he can really take advantage of some of those wedge proximities that we mentioned earlier. You know, Donald Ross is sort of famous for these multi-tiered greens, and I think when that really comes into effect is when the course is really firm and it's hard to hold these little quadrants within the green to give yourself a good birdie look. The conditions and the softness of these greens this week is really going to allow players a different method to, I think, attack some of these pins, and he's a guy certainly with the iron play dialed in capable of doing so.
All right, well, let's head to another young, exciting player in Austin Eckroat, which I will tell you, I'm going to have to make up a little bit of a fair value for him because he's already passed through his own fair value for tonight. Let's call it 650, Joe. That's top 25 or better for Austin Eckroat. Are you bullish or bearish?
I'm actually bearish, and I've been incredibly impressed with his run recently, but I think this may be a time where you can sort of sell high on Austin Eckroat, and here are some of my reasons why. Notably last week, the majority of the events prior to this where he was gaining a ton of strokes on approach, basically from Wells Fargo to the US Open, are much longer golf courses where he's got longer irons in hand, which I think are more so the strength of his iron play. When he showed up to a really short course last week in the Travelers Championship, he lost strokes on approach and pretty significant, 2.6. Now, he was able to negate that by having the second best putting week of his career last week, which allowed him to still finish well. I don't think that's necessarily sustainable. He's 69th in the field in that wedge range from 75 to 150 yards that I mentioned. So his strength is more so long iron play. He's not long off the tee. I just think this is a week where maybe the pendulum has swung too far and it may be an opportunity to be on the bearish side of someone like Eckroat.
Yeah, so I'll actually kind of lump him in with our next guy because I personally feel kind of similar, and I feel similar a little bit about Ludwig Aberg, and the problem is this is a it's like a perception game. It's like what is perception, what is reality, what is realistic. There is a price for everybody, and while these two golfers, both Aberg and Eckroat, I'm super excited about long term. Is this the week to buy them at what is absolutely going to be their all-time high? And that is always a little bit worrisome to me. So I look at these guys and say, okay, I think they can contend a lot of places. I think that even when these fields get deeper, as you know, who knows, maybe they make a run into the playoffs, maybe or next year, whatever it is, I think they're going to be able to contend. I don't need to pay the hype numbers for them this week. So I will find it very difficult to probably end up with much Aberg or Eckroat here tonight.
Yeah, the highest price that Ludwig has gone for, and granted, this is a relatively limited career so far. This is his 7th, going to be actually his 8th Jock Market contest that he's been available, is 546. He's going to clear that by more than $2 tonight. I think his popularity, I think the shininess of the new car may lead this price to be a little bit inflated. Although like, I'm so high on this guy over the next 5 years, and I really do think that he has a ton of potential. He's got a special weapon with the driver off the tee, and this is kind of a course you can really take advantage and play and deploy that bomb and gouge technique that we talk about every now and then. He's familiar, I believe, with having to go out and shoot 7 or 8 under par per round. Some of these young players, as we see that come up through the amateur ranks, are really used to having to that pressure of really forcing yourself to go low. I'm going to be bearish, but I'm also going to keep an eye on Ludwig. Like, if I see something brewing this week and it seems like he's kind of got it going, the strength of the field leads to me believe that this could be a spot where we see him break through for his first top 10 finish if things are going the right way.
Yeah, certainly possible. Now, let's round this segment out with somebody we've seen early and often this year. It's Tom Kim. His fair value tonight's hovering right around $8, and he hasn't really moved off of that early. We'll obviously keep an eye on it. There's about 28 minutes to go in this IPO, but that is asking Tom Kim to finish about 18th or better, Joe. So do you take a bullish or bearish stance on Tom Kim?
Yeah, he's basically a few cents higher than what we're projecting Ludwig to go. I'm much, much more confident in Tom Kim this week. The approach play has really been trending in a positive direction. When I look at where he's sort of beating up courses, it's a lot of times on these easier scoring conditions. Number one in terms of strokes gained on the par fives on easy golf courses in the entire field. It's a course with 4 par fives and only 7,200 yards, and 3 of them are 3 of the most gettable par fives that we do have on tour. The birdies numbers have been fantastic. I worry a little bit about the short game, but from 125 to 150 yards, he's the number one guy in the entire field as well. I'm bullish on Tom Kim. I love the fact that he won on a softer, shorter sort of Donald Ross design at the Wyndham. So I think a bit of comfort level and good form this week, I'm going to be bullish.
Yeah, talk about maybe the pendulum swinging too far, kind of the opposite direction for Tom Kim, where it's like, I think he's a lot closer than people want to give him credit for. And the skill set still very, very good when you can be gaining a stroke and a half per round on approach. And then hopefully he gets back to rolling the rock like we know that he can. So I'll take a bullish stance on Tom Kim as well, but we've got live numbers coming in here, Joe, and they are piling up quick. Currently, the most expensive golfer in tonight's Jock Market is Ricky Fowler, $9.23. That is right on his fair value. That is going to ask Ricky Fowler to finish about 13th or better, and this will be by far the most expensive Ricky has ever been. We've crossed it, and it is not even close at this point.
Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it. I would love for the story to come through, but talk about what we were sort of alluding to earlier with buying at an all-time high. This price is way too inflated on Ricky this week. I understand the form is there, but given the fact that this is a short, easy birdie fest type golf course, it opens the field up exponentially versus a difficult test like the US Open or Memorial or some of these other places where he's had some success recently. I just think that there are too many variable options where he doesn't meet the highest price number in the field, and I'm willing to sort of just relax in Jock Market, and I've kind of just already decided that I'm just not going to be there. Where are you with him?
It's going to be too expensive. Yeah, I mean, I just think that he is going to box himself into a situation where, he's going to have to finish like 10th or better when this thing is all said and done. And I think that it would still be, there are a lot of scenarios in which Ricky finishes T15, and I'm very, very optimistic about the way he plays. And I just, it's not like he's a proven closer. I think there's a lot of ways that this loses you money, but I love the way he's playing.
Yep, exactly. He would have to, even if he wins, which would be a tremendous accomplishment for him. This isn't like asking Scotty Scheffler to win. Like asking Ricky Fowler to win at this point is a big leap, and you're basically boiled down to like 2.5x on your money because he's going to be over $10 this year. You're right. I think there are much more scenarios in which case he doesn't finish in the top 10 than he does.
The only golfer who breaks ties over Ricky is Tony Finau. We do that via the pre-rank here. $8.75 right now for Hunky Tony. 5 straight losing Jock Markets, 7 out of 8. Though the one that he he made you money, Joe. He won. So obviously a fairly sizable return there. I definitely skew colder, more bearish on Finau than I think most. Where are you at on Tony?
Yeah, I'm probably with you there. It's interesting though, because he does tend to go back to spots where he plays well and continue that. And we saw that happen at Mexico, basically with very questionable form coming into that event. He went back to a place where he finished like top 3 the year before and made it happen. I'm also have some concerns. And basically, it's about he's not giving himself enough good birdie looks. And when he does, he's the 106th ranked putter in the field over the last 36 rounds. So he's got not much confidence brewing with the flat stick, and he's not giving himself enough looks. If he thinks he's got to get to 30 under par, he needs a drastic change with, I think, his iron and wedge play this week. And he's got to come up with a hot putter too. And that's a lot of things to ask at like 9 something per share.
Yeah, you're asking a lot of questions and you're not so sure about the answers that you're getting. Hideki Matsuyama at 819 right now. He's the third most expensive golfer. Sung J M, Justin Thomas, Ludwig Aberg rounding out the $7 range with Eckroat and Morikawa at $6 per share. Let's talk about Colin here, because while we talk about Colin, I'm just going to go ahead and put some bids in on him, Joe. But are you as excited about him as I, or am I kind of on an island here?
I'm lukewarm on Colin. You're going to have to sell me on him a little bit. I love the fact that he seemed to rebound a little bit last week. There have been positive signs, but it still feels like a week to me where you look at the stats on a Wednesday from the previous week and you're like, wow, it was not too bad. He missed the cut basically on the number, but it was able to gain a little bit off the tee, lost on approach. The US Open, there were positive signs there as well. I don't know that I have enough to put in an early bid on him, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's played like 9 awesome rounds in his last 10, but it's translated to a WD because he got hurt and then a missed cut. And I just think if you're going to, again, like same thing I said before, like if you're going to gain a stroke or a stroke and a half on approach, I'm in. And I just look at this field. I look at the upside that he has, and I just feel like it's brewing.
Is this his first time at this event?
Yes.
Him and JT, right? This
Correct.
is their sort of debut here. What about Justin Thomas? Like, we actually did see some positive signs for once of life from him last week. Do you have any interest? He's very, very, unless I need a refresh here, there doesn't seem to be many people quite interested.
Yeah, I'm interested, right? It means he gained 7 strokes on approach last week. The name of the game, I think, around this place is opportunities, right? And Justin Thomas gives himself so many opportunities. Now, the question is always going to be, how far does the putter take him? And I think a lot of the conversation around JT is that he doesn't win enough, which I think is true. But this is a market in which, him not making enough putts and finishing T4 is like plenty good.
Yeah, and normally you look at a guy like Justin Thomas and he comes to an event like the Rocket Mortgage Classic, and you may be able to question some of the motivation for being there, but I think he has a lot to play for right now. He showed up this week and committed to this event late for a very good reason, and that's he needs the points, he needs the confidence, he needs to get something going. I think there's a sense of urgency there. I love what he did last week, and I also love, like you mentioned, just like seeking out opportunities in terms of the golfers, but it's also, that's the name of the game sort of in Jock Market as well. And there are opportunities to get in low on someone who you don't want to wait until if you wait till Justin Thomas puts together 4 consecutive really good rounds with his irons, you're going to be paying $9.50, $10 a share again. You want to kind of get in on the early side on him, and this might be a week where you need to jump.
Yeah, it's too late. After he wins, it'll be too late. Or after he finishes T2 again, it'll be too late. The $5 range here's got some interesting names, Joe, and I want to see if any of them stand out to you. So it's Eckroat, Benny On, Cam Davis, Mark Hubbard, Steven Yeager, Chris Kirk, Alex Smalley, who we've also talked about, Aaron Rye, Justin Suh, Taylor Moore. This is kind of where you've got the top heavy nature of the field, and then it starts to get a little bit weird, not bad weird, but just like we got to start making some decisions at some point.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I see there. I actually bet Mark Hubbard this week, so I've seen some positive signs for him. I don't mind it. But I think that everyone can probably agree when you look at that range there's one player that's just better than the rest of them, and it's Cam Davis. There's one player that's won this event before, and it's Cam Davis. If you can overlook some of the fluctuations, I'll call it, in the recent form of him, and just understand that he has the highest top end talent and he's also won here before, I think that he makes the most sense for me of those guys. How do you feel about that?
What's interesting about him, and I think he's interesting in like showdown formats, and I also think that it's interesting like first round leader or in Jock Market where you can live trade, is that he's had a couple of like legit ceiling rounds lately, right? I mean, he was phenomenal on Sunday at the PGA Championship. He was
Yes.
great on both Thursday and Sunday at the Travelers. So he's like trying to put all 4 rounds together, which is more troublesome in other markets than it is here. So yes, I think in this format, I'm more interested in Davis than in other formats as well.
Yep. Three out of 4 missed cuts, but you're right. 2 really good rounds at the Travelers last week could be primed.
The fours have a couple of interesting guys like Doug Gim, although unfortunately Doug's got a really bad pre-rank 77th. He's $4.40 per share right now. Taylor Pendrith, who finished runner-up at this event last year, is just short of that $4 mark. But we're starting to get further down the board and starting to find some of those longer shots, those guys that are not going to have to do nearly as much, Joe. 450 per share is 38th or better. So is there any target or targets down here that you think are worth a discussion?
Yeah, so there are a couple for me. I think that Brandon Wu makes some sense. I've had Brandon Wu quite a bit this year, and on tournaments where it's really required you to shoot really low, he's put up some good rounds. So he was 3rd at the Mexico Open. He was 9th at the Canadian Open. He was 2nd on a short course at Pebble Beach earlier this year as well. And the other guy I kind of like is Shank. He's putting together decent form. He's had a couple of second place finishes this year. I do think that he does possess the requisite upside that I'm looking for out of someone in the $3-4 range. If he can kind of hold that price suggested at 523 there, I think he's a good candidate this week to potentially finish in the top 35.
I'm going to flip this around. I might need to refresh this, but I'll refresh in a second. I'll just tell you the guys that are lagging behind: Keegan Bradley, fresh off of victory, $3.45. Max Homa, $3.50. They're not going to finish there, Joe, but an early indication with 17 minutes to go that there is not as much positive sentiment on those two as maybe some others. Where do we stand? And obviously there's a price for everybody. So what's the price on these guys?
Yeah, I have actually a pretty strong belief that Keegan Bradley is going to play pretty well again. I don't mind that he just won. I'm sure he enjoyed himself, but this is coming to another golf course, which I think shares, and I've noted on this a couple of times, many similar traits. You're going to have confidence with the putter. You're going to have to feel like you can hole a lot of 15 to 20 foot putts, and he did that as well as anybody last week. Homa, I have more concerns about, and I probably shouldn't, because if I'm going with some players that I feel like are cheaper than they should be with high-end upside talent, he's probably the guy that I should have favorited and be eyeing over these next 15 minutes or so here. What have you seen statistically out of him that may be one, either troubling or encouraging?
I think the encouraging part about Homa is that he does not necessarily foreshadow good play. He is kind of capable of doing this: miscut, T8, T55, T9, miscut, right? I think that it is, he talked about this a little bit. I forget where I heard him talking about this the last couple of days, where he can kind of just go find something and grind through it and turn his results around pretty quickly. And it doesn't always work, but there are some guys that you see, like you almost have to see them play 2 good rounds, then 3 good rounds, and then they're going to start putting it together. I'm not sure Homa's that guy, and he's legit. I mean, he's very easily one of the best 5 players in this field who can win the golf tournament. And I think that it's being a little bit undervalued as of this point.
I like that. I wanted to ask you about 2 other guys. You got a sec?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So obviously Ludwig is getting all the love this week, and he's already up to, let me see what I have him up here at. Ludwig's already up to $7 per share. There's 2 players that are also very young, very new to the tour, very different, and they're about half the price of Ludwig this week. They have very different games. One is Sam Bennett. The other is Gordon Sargent. Which of those players would you be more inclined, assuming they are the same price, to buy shares of tonight?
Probably Bennett. I think Gordon Sargent in 3 years might be unreal, right? Like just super talented, but super, super raw. As of right now, he just hits it far and he's got to figure out the rest of it. He's better than that, but it's very raw. Bennett is a bit more refined. We've seen him play some very good golf and high level in major championships and bigger events. And I trust him a little bit more. So if you offered both of those guys to me at the same price, I'd be stocking up on Bennett.
I agree with you there. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. So here's how the market's shaping up. So we got about 14 minutes to go. Ricky Fowler seems like he is going to be the most expensive golfer in the market tonight. $9.23 right now. Tony Finau, $8.75. Hideki, $8.19. This final 14 minutes will continue to heat up. There's a promo code. It's power. There's a link in the description. You can use that for the deposit bonus. There is a ton of promos like the Jockpot, which is if you get 11 props correct, you win the progressive jackpot. You can also, if this is your first PGA market, either guarantee a break if you lose. Jock Market makes you whole, or if you win, they give you an extra $20. So there is a lot of incentive to get into this market right now. Also, I know there are a lot of guys, Joe, who like these. We call them penny stocks, right? This $3 or this second page of the board, which is currently about $2.92 with Lucas Glover at the top. How do we find these guys? This is an event that basically half the years has offered a pretty big long shot winners. So do you see anybody that you think might be able to make some noise this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a couple. One is Sam Stevens. He just makes a ton of birdies, and I think that style of game will be somewhat rewarded this week. I have him right now as the 34 pre-rank, and he's $2 per share. Now his fair value projection is over $5. So we'll continue to sort of monitor that as things move along. Troy Merritt is someone who had a really good run here a few years ago, I believe in the year that Cam Davis won. And then I don't mind going back to a player with upside, but is somewhat volatile, like a guy that I mentioned quite often in Adam Svensson. This is a short course that should suit his game, which should suit his wedges really properly. He's had a couple of bad performances, but let's not forget that this is a guy that was 13th at the Players Championship, a top 10 at the Genesis Open. I really do feel like he has talent. He won at the RSM Classic in the fall. So if you can get players like this that you think in a field of this strength have top 10 potential upside if things go right in the $2 range, I think it's always going to be a prospectus buy.
Yeah, and you always make a really good point that basically your downside is only going down to $1 per share. So someone like Matty Schmid, who actually it's not going to show it here, and his Jock Market stuff is not as good, but his best 2 results recently are European Tour results. So he's been playing better than what this stuff is indicating here. He's $1.91 right now. I'll throw a bid on him in just a second, but I do like the idea that there is only so much downside, and you're always so good at pointing that out. It makes a lot of sense here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what I've found to be most successful is sort of building with balance. So I usually stick to 8 to 10 guys, a few from that top range, because I do think they possess the highest floor in a sense, but find some options to take risks. And it's normally on these guys that are $2 because the downside, like you just mentioned, of a missed cut is only $1 or $1.50 per share, but the upside of a top 10 is a 10x payout. So those are the types that you need to look for as well.
All right, I'm going to refresh this board here in just a second. We've got about 11 minutes to go until this IPO closes, but that's really not the end. It's really actually just the beginning of things because live trading, Joe, runs throughout, right? So on a week where it might be really soft on Thursday and there's rain in the forecast, first thunderstorms on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, right? Like this is a chance that if you're paying attention and watching the scoring averages change throughout the day, as they've been doing over the last couple of weeks, you can make some moves and stay in this thing.
Absolutely, yeah, and there may be a slight if I check the weather now, it may have changed, of course, but maybe a slight weather advantage that I saw potentially in play tomorrow as well for a certain wave. So continuing to monitor things like conditions. Obviously, the weather tends to sort of bring this thing to a slog in some degree if they're still going to have the rain and the smoke coverage that a lot of the Midwest is dealing with right now. So opening this thing up for live trading is probably the best aspect and most unique part of Jock Market, and making sure that you continue to sort of keep your options open on the weekend and open up the app and see if there's anything available. Sort of what I found really nice is the quick fire featured bets or the featured moves in terms of getting a short on a player. They mostly, it seems to be lately, have been offering the shorts, but you can get like a 20 share short on a guy in one little click if you don't think that he's going to finish in the top 9 who may be up there. Always gives you a little bit of opportunity, and I found that pretty advantageous.
They are very, very handy indeed. Yes, I've been noticing them as well. And it's just a little click and you get access to all of that right on the spot. Ricky Fowler continues to extend. He is the most expensive he's ever been in the Jock Market, which shouldn't come as much of a surprise considering in the Jock Market era, Ricky Fowler has just not played well. And now he's starting to do that again. And everybody's coming back around. Tony Finau at 875. Listen, he was 1165 when he won in Mexico. So we've seen Tony kind of up here, and then Hideki's the only other golfer above $8. As I kind of look down here, still a little bit light in terms of fair value, Joe, on Homa. I'm just trying. Brian Harmon has some wiggle room. He's got a buck to his fair value. Just trying to see. I mean, Christian Bezadenhout, just no love yet. He's got a ton of room to his fair value. So there's still plenty of juice to squeeze right about now.
Yeah, absolutely. What's in Bezadenhout is like 11th or he's 12th in terms of the pre-rank, still at $1.79. Adam Hadwin is 13th in the pre-rank, still at $1.79, unless I need to update this. But it's sort of a unique, it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out. Like, a year ago, if I had told you the one player in this field with the least amount of question marks coming in would be Ricky Fowler, we'd be crazy. We were talking about him on this show even in the fall at like $2-3 a share. So we have a lot of the big names, but I think outside of Ricky, they all have a major sort of red light concern right now that we've been a little bit worried about, whether it's Colin, Hideki, Tony, Justin Thomas. But I think this is a great spot, and I actually believe one of them has a great chance to right the ship this week, get right back on track heading into the last major of the season. So it'll be exciting to see this thing kick off tomorrow.
All right. Well, Joe, I'm going to let you get out of here. We've got work to do. You've got to build a portfolio. We've got about 7 minutes to go. We will check in with you as this thing shuts down. Good luck.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Joe is going to go get his bids in. He's going to try to steal guys from you. You're going to try to steal from him. My 7 orders are still live as of right now. We'll see in the next couple of minutes which ones of those fall and which are golfers I will end up with in my portfolio. We'll refresh the big board here and I'll take you the rest of the way. Real quick, the code is POWER, link in the description. Go back to the start of the show. We ran through multiple different promotions that are going on right now that you'd be pretty stupid not to take up these offers on because they're pretty easy ways to get free cash. Ricky Fowler, 970 at the moment. So what does 970 mean? It means he needs to finish about 12th or better to return you a profit. 13th would be $9.50 a share, so you'd lose a little bit there. And 12th would be $10 a share, so you'd make a little bit there. So that's your break-even point, basically between 12th and 13th place. Tony Finau at 875. He is the number 1 pre-ranked golfer. That's important because he will break every single tie. If there's a 9-way tie for second, Tony gets the full share of payout. That's how it works. So trying to turn around 5 losing markets in a row. Tony at 875, Hideki at 850. He's right around his own fair value for tonight. He's been playing a lot better. He's been playing a lot like Hideki again. Here comes JT. So JT, I think, is the guy that we're going to see a run on here in the final couple of minutes. I think that there's just this lurking support. Everybody trying to be early. We talked about it a little bit earlier. You're only going to get so many opportunities to be early on Justin Thomas before you are late on Justin Thomas. And it kind of feels the same way about Colin Morikawa, who is $7.76 right now. So $7.76, again, just to try to put this into perspective. It's about 19th or better. Can Colin Morikawa finish 19th or better at the Rocket Mortgage Classic? That's the question you're asking yourself if you're paying $7.76 right now. It's been a little bit all over the place for Colin, but I think it is it's been a lot better than it actually appears. Then there's a big pile up at $7. It's Colin, Sung Jae, Tom Kim, Max Homa, Keegan Bradley, Ludwig Aberg. Which of does one of those names not fit the others? Love Ludwig, but let's count the PGA Tour victories. There's like, I don't know, nearly 20 between those other golfers, and Ludwig's making just his third or fourth professional start. Eckroat alone at $6 even. He has been phenomenal. 5 consecutive winning markets, including a couple of triple-digit returns along the way. Sorting this out via the projected rank, via the pre-rank, you'll see the guys that have a lower IPO price than their fair value. That's where you'd assume, if the projections are right, if the fair values are right, if the odds are right, all that stuff, that there would be some juice to squeeze. So Justin Suh, I'm highlighting right now, he's like $1.50 short of his fair value. Can Justin Suh finish what is essentially 31st or better? That's the question that you have to ask about Justin Suh. I'm going to refresh this board real quick. Refresh this board and see what we can find. We got about 4 minutes to go in this IPO. We've got a couple of guys bearing down on that $10 mark. Ricky Fowler, as close as you can be without being there, $9.99 per share. That now is getting us to that $12 mark, as we talked about a little bit earlier. Tony Finau at $9.06. Let's go a little bit further down the board, see if we can find Ches Reavie. You buying that? $4.09, coming off of a solid finish last week, but comes up a little bit short on Sunday. Here's the stud, Gordon Sargent, raw but talented, $3.66, the same price as Carson Young. Carson Young, 4 triple-digit returns in his last 8 starts. The guy is very, very good. Here's Sam Bennett, $3.41. The problem with Sam Bennett, he got a very bad pre-rank, 119th. That is not going to work out well for Sam Bennett, but I do love the game and the way that he plays. Going on to the second page here, these are $3.25 and cheaper. I got to admit, there's not a lot to love here, but they don't have to win. They don't have to finish top 10. They don't have to do any of that. I showed you Augusto Nunez. You probably saw me put bids in on him. I think on a golf course that allows you to bomb it without regard for accuracy and go out and make a bunch of birdies. And Nunez had a great little Corn Ferry career. This is the spot for him. If there's going to be a spot, this is it. You're seeing the bids roll in on Vincent Norman, kind of the same idea there. He's just going to knock it around this place. So I've got 20 shares in on Augusto Nunez right now. We'll see if I can hold on to those over the course of the next 2 minutes or so, because that's all the time that we have left in this market. I'm going to refresh this and see if we can find who has cracked into $10, if anybody has, and Ricky has just got there. $10 on the nose. Flip it around. Look at the top 10 golfers. The cheapest top 10 golfer you can get right now, it's Ludwig, but it's very close. Max Homa feels a little bit disrespectful. Feels a little bit disrespectful in terms of the 8th pre-rank. His fair value at 809. He's at 762. And I think that there's an opportunity that he plays very, very well this week. We are probably very close to this thing shutting down. It's over.
Closed.
There you go. Wow. IPO is closed. They've been early the last couple of weeks.
It has. That was early. And sorry I lost you there for a second. Had a little power surge where the internet reset. So
I'm glad you sent me a text, and as I was just kind of going through, I was able to read it, and I was like, okay, hold me back.
Everything flashed. The lights went off. There was a big lightning bolt outside. I was like, oh no, but we're back live. I just wait in just a second here to see who I got in their portfolio. I need a rebound week, man. I actually was not on the leaderboard last week and lost a couple dollars in the market. So hopefully we can get back on track. That's the first time in wow. I think I got all 7 of mine. Well, I'll show you those in a second, those early bids. That's honestly, it's a lot less stressful to just put the bids in early and not have to worry about who's going to steal something from me. Just like, I'm just going to pay the price and I'll deal with it later. You end up taking a lot of the split-second judgments out of it. Well, let's hear who you got. Who'd you end up with? All right, so let's see. Okay, first off, let me say I was not expecting to get all these guys. I was kind of just doing like a little I'll show you how the bidding process works. I'll throw a couple bids in. I did that last week and I got no one. So I was not really expecting to get all of these guys. But what I ended up with is Colin Morikawa at $8.30.
830. Oh, sorry. I got him at 879 per share. So that is what? 879 is 15th or better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not bad.
I got Homa at 768.
That's cheap.
You talked me into Svensson at $4. Smalley at 580, Shank at 515, Augusto Nunez at 258, and Matty Schmidt at $2. So I actually am skewing kind of on the cheaper side of things.
Okay, couple of dart throws there. I think you stole Svensson from me in the process of my internet being down, but here's who I ended up with. I did get shares of Tom Kim, who I talked about being bullish on at $7.80. Right below him, Keegan Bradley wasn't afraid to go back there at $7.59. Sort of in that mid $4 range, Brandon Wu and Matt Neesmith. And then at $3 per share, Zach Blair. We'll see if he can run it back. And then Ryan Gerard, who I've just seen have a couple of rounds where he can really go low this season. Lost out on a couple with sort of being down there in a minute, but that's my 6 strong this week. I'm hoping can pull through.
Yeah, if there was ever a time to not have like something going on in the house, it would be the final like 3 minutes before 9 p.m. Eastern time on a Wednesday night, right? Like
that timing, yeah.
Do that at 9:03 or do that at like, whatever. Not 8:58 or whatever it was. But Tom Kim, Keegan Bradley, Brandon Wu, Matt Neesmith, Ryan Gerard, Zach Blair for Joe. And I saw that there were a couple of portfolios rolling in the chat as well. Brent got Brendan Todd, Cam Davis, Sam Stevens, Grayson Sig, Nick Hardy, Kevin Yu. And then he rounds it out with, I assume that is Charlie Hoffman, Jimmy Walker, Kevin Tway, Tano Goya, Kevin Streelman. So Brent, as we've seen, likes to live kind of further down the board. Eddie got Ben Griffin, Harry Hall, Justin Lauer, Trey Molinax, and then Dylan got the Jägerbomb, Bezadenhout, Bramlett, S.H. Kim, Sam Bennett, and Andrew Landry. So a couple of, I don't want to call them, they're like penny stock profiles out there for this week.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like Eddie's. Ben Griffin, to see if he can get a rebound week. And Harry Hall is one that I had favorited that has been playing really well.
Yeah, he's starting to figure it out, that Harry Hall. Okay. Let me just make sure I have the most up-to-date numbers, Joe. I think I do, but I'm going to refresh one more time just to be super sure. Okay. So Ricky Fowler, 10 on the nose, which is 12th or better. 12th or better for Ricky, $10 on the nose. We talked about it plenty. The most expensive he's ever been, and 23 cents more expensive than Tony. Those two were kind of in a tier of their own before we got to everybody else.
Yep, Ricky into double digits. Not surprised, but still, it just kind of strikes the eye seeing double digits next to his name. Tony just there about a quarter under. And then I was, you said it late, right before I lost you there, about expecting sort of a late Justin Thomas run at 850. I'm surprised he didn't creep up a little bit higher, because you're right. This is a great spot to sort of predict and try to be early on a guy if you can see him, trickling in sort of the sentiments of turning something around.
There is, I was going to say that, but I was going to say there's only like one Hall of Famer in this field, and that's not actually true, but it's like because like Luke Donald's in this field, but like there is like one competitive Hall of Famer, maybe 1.5, because Colin is technically eligible with 2 major championships, but that guy to be asked to finish like 16th or better, and he's still very competitive coming off one of his best ball striking weeks. I think there's a chance that JT is the value of the week at 850.
Yeah, it's a good price. It's a good price for sure.
Ludwig at 735, Eckroat at 609. Those were the two guys that we were kind of keeping an eye on. So 739 is about 20th or better. And then Eckroat at 609 is about 28th or better. That one is seemingly a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah, it is. I was expecting him to get a little bit higher, which is why I was on the bearish side. But yeah, Ludwig didn't quite get to that fair value number either. But at 735, you're still going to need a top 20 out of the guy and one of his 5th start on the PGA Tour. So it's a lot. It's a hefty ask. Early start, and maybe, listen, it's Detroit in the summer. There are like thunderstorms in the forecast every day. So you could get a situation where electricity brings them off the golf course. You could get a situation where it's super soft and it's delayed. Like who knows? But while that's annoying,
these are the weeks where the live trading benefits those who are paying attention.
Absolutely. Pay attention, see what the weather's doing, see what the scoring waves are producing in terms of average score, and pay attention to the holes too. Like I mentioned, the par fives are some of the easiest that we see on the PGA Tour. At least 3 of them are. You basically are the majority of the field is making birdie and having eagle opportunities at those. So if you can catch your guy on a 3-hole stretch incoming that is easier than the field, and you think you can jump from -200 par to -4, it's a good time to maybe potentially buy early. So paying attention to how the waves are playing and where your guy is positioned sort of on the golf course, I think is always important in weeks like this.
I'll remind you one more time. Go back to the start of the show. We've rattled off like 3 or 4 different promotions that are going on Jock Market right now. The one that we've got scrolling across the bottom, promo code POWER for your deposit. There's risk-free markets. There's bonuses if you win. There's a Jock pot if you want to get involved in that. There's boosts for the props. There's like literally there's a million things. So just go back to the beginning of the show, rewatch that, and go take advantage of everything. So should be fun, Joe. We'll be back at it again next Wednesday night.
Yep. See you next Wednesday for John Deere Classic. And then we head over to Europe for the Scottish Open and Open Championship. So a fun and exciting summer of golf, and happy to join you next Wednesday as well. Thanks, guys, for checking out the show as always.
Follow Joe on Twitter at TourPicks. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your Jock Market Power Hour for this week's Rocket Mortgage Classic. Good luck.